everyone, today I'm so happy to show you one of my favorite opening, the King's Gambit. We will see ideas, plans and critical lines, starting with what beginners likes to play against the King's Gambit. Let's get started. As a starter, we are going to see all the lines that the beginners love to play against the King's Gambit. The King's Gambit is e4, e5, f4. And here, there are two lines that I've noticed that beginners love to play. Line number one is knight c6, just going to protect the pawn that is attacked. And here it's important to know how to face this with white. My recommendation is just keep attacking this pawn one more time. And now it's not needed. That pawn doesn't need to be protected. We will see later why. But many players likes to protect it with the move d6, which is very logical. You attack, I protect. Your white should go on with knight c3, just developing another knight. And after knight f6, my recommendation is to go all in with the move d4. Here basically there are two moves that black can play. Either capture the pawn or play bishop g5. Bishop g5 is not too good, but is critical. We need to know some moves. So here, d take e5 is the move. After d take e5, you capture the queen on g8. And after this, you win a pawn with the move f take e5. Attacking the knight. If bishop take f3, you can take here on f6. So this is not a problem. And the critical move is knight to b4. After which, you play the move. You need to protect f2. So you play bishop b5 check. And after c6, bishop a4, and now the bishop is protecting. And here we have an extra pawn, and you enjoy a very pleasant position. So here at move 5, the main move is to take the pawn on d4. And after knight take d4, whites enjoy just a very pleasant position. How to go on here with white? You just develop your bishop. Bishop can go on c4 or on b5, bishop on e3. Queen on d2, and here I love go for the long castle and then push all your pawns g4, g5, f5, because you're very ready with those two pawns e4 and f4. So your white gets just a very easy position. All right, let's go back a few moves. Second line that beginners loves to play is to capture the pawn and then just to develop the pieces. So let's see, knight f3 is the move that I recommend. And here we need to see the move knight to c6. This is what can lead to a very natural development. Black is just trying to bring out two pieces. d4, knight to f6. Now the knight is attacking this pawn on e4, and we need to be precise. I don't want you to play the move knight c3, which is a natural move to protect the pawn on e4, because this could be a bit problematic. After bishop b4, pinning the knight, you need to protect one more time, and then d5. This is unclear. I don't like this for white. So here you need to remember one move. You need to solve two problems at the same time. The knight attacking this pawn and the move d5, which is a usual breakthrough. And so you play the move queen to d2. After d6, which is d5, of course, is not possible. You would just take with check and the pawn is protected. After the move d6 that is done to stop the pawn on e5, you go on with bishop take f4, bishop e7, knight to c3, castle, and again long castle. So remember, always try to go for sharp lines where you can attack. Long castle and then h3, g4, g5, push and baby. Now we want to get to what Fury recommends to play against the King's Gambit. We will see mostly three reply here. The King's Gambit declined with bishop c5, the counter Gambit with d5, and the King's Gambit accepted. Let's start in order with the King's Gambit declined with bishop to c5. First of all, let's mention it's not needed to protect the pawn on e5, because after f take e5, that would be queen h5 check, which is queen h4 check, sorry, which is not what white wants, because after g3, pawn take and queen take the pawn, and we are in trouble. So the pawn doesn't have to be protected. Bishop c5 plays the bishop in the most beautiful diagonal, the diagonal a7 g1, which is very vulnerable because white pushed the pawn on f4. So try to exploit this factor. Knight f3, attacking the pawn twice. Now, it needs to be protected. So d6, knight to c3, knight to f6. Here we develop the pieces normally, bishop c4, so you just need to remember easy development, go with the knight, with the bishop, and knight to c6, and now d3. Look shortly that we have a problem, we cannot castle because this bishop is very annoying. So after a move like bishop to g4, which is one of the main line here, we need to remember the move. Remember 7, knight to a4. We need to get rid of the most important piece, the bishop on c5. And here we go. We go with knight on a4. And there is no way for black to avoid us to capture this piece. If check here, we go c3, this b4. And after bishop on b6, we will capture that bishop. So actually the main move here for black is to castle. Knight takes c5, d takes c5. And we can castle. The main move here is queen d6, and here already white is having a good position, but I want to mention an extra idea. Here, of course, the queen and the pawn are attacking or threatening to take on f4, so you need to protect the pawn. You have two ways. Either you push, either you capture on e5. I hope you would prefer to push here, because if you capture, you know, this knight is pinned, the knight is getting to e5. This is unclear. Already pushing is a bit better, just to block to block the center and to gain space on the king side. But there is a very interesting defense here, which is the move queen d2, which is solving two things at the same time. It's protecting this pawn and is unpinning the knight. And here the idea is very interesting. How does white want to go on? Let's mention already that white is having the bishop pair here. So if many pieces are getting exchanged, white is enjoying a very comfortable endgame, also because those two pawns are doubled and so weak. So for example, let's do a waiting move for black, h6. We can just capture here, and after knight take we capture, and after queen here we can go with the strong queen a4, offering a trade of queens, after which the endgame is just so pleasant for white. Double pawns, double and weak pawns for black, and bishop pair for white. This is clearly better endgame for white. So this queen d2 is very interesting. Here the main move played is bishop take f3 in order to, you know, to avoid all these exchanges in the center. And here after g take f3, which is also a move that I want you to remember, you can go on with an important attack towards the black king. So you will go on with king h1, queen g2, f5, rook g1, and this can be maybe even bishop to h6. This can be extremely strong. So that's it. This is main move to remember. After bishop g4 is the move knight to a4. So now that you know that the idea for white is to play knight a4, you might understand why the main move here is to play a6. After which, you don't have to remember many moves. You just need to know, okay, f5. Now I want to block. I don't want to allow the bishop to go to g4. And then you need to go on with simple move like queen e3, bishop e3. You want to get rid of that bishop in any way. One way or another, you will get rid of it. So queen e2, bishop e3, long castle, maybe g4, g5, and you go on. Let's see the other line, b5. Here you capture the pawn. And here we have e4. Just to mention, one possible line is also e take f4, which is not too critical. Black gets an equal position after knight f3, knight f6, bishop c4, protecting the pawn, and after this, white just plays the move e4. Now our idea is that we will capture the pawn on d5 in order to get back the pawn on f4. And white is having more space in the center, black is having the bishop pair, but probably also the bishop on d5 will not be stable because most of the time black is protecting with bishop on e6. So eventually the position is more or less equal with equal chances. Let's go to the critical line is e4. And here you need to remember a few things. The move here is the move d3. That pawn is so strong because is, you know, avoiding our knight to get to f3 that we need to get rid as soon as possible. any move here, if black is taking, you can take with the bishop, then just develop your pieces, and white is having a great position. So also queen take here is not too good. After this, you can just, for example, bishop b4 pinning, bishop d2, I'm pinning the knight, and after this, you're attacking the pawn on g7, you will take back. In case of queen takes, you will play queen e2, exchanging queens, bishop pair, just very good position for white. So here, the main move after the move d3 is knight to f6. You need to take here, knight take. And now you need to be careful. There is this threat, queen h4, and after g3, knight takes g3. So knight f3 is needed. Please do it in the right order. Bishop to c5. This is by far the most critical variation. There is a hole on f2, and we need to take care of it. A knight is going there, and the bishop is going there. So here, white has to do one move, is queen e2, which is pinning this knight and avoiding any threat on f2. Bishop f2 check is not good, even if it seems strong, because after king d1, queen take d5 check, we have a very strong move, knight d2, covering the check, attacking the knight, and preparing a very strong knight to c3. This position is already winning for white, because the knight will fall, and the knight is also the only piece that is protecting the bishop. So this is like completely lost for black. So here the main move played by black is the move bishop to f5. Also, f5 is a possibility, after which I recommend to play the move bishop e3, just simplify the position. And let's not forget that white has this extra pawn on d5. So bishop f5. And here, knight to c3. We attack one more time, the knight, and we are also protecting the pawn on d5. Queen e7, it's needed to be protected. And now we will see lots of exchanges. Bishop e3. Trade offer, the knight can trade, everything can trade. So here there are two main moves. Bishop take e3 and knight takes c3. If knight takes c3, important, only move also. We cannot take back because we lose this, so we have to take there. And after this, we take the queen. And if, for example, black is trying to capture the pawn, we just go back on a3, and after knight take d5, long castle, here we are with black a pawn down. Sorry, with white we are a pawn down, but look at the white pieces. The bishop is going to c5, the king cannot castle. We will go with the other rook on e1, knight can jump on e5. This is actually clearly better for white. So let's see the other way to get to an endgame. After bishop e3, the main line is to take on e3, and after queen take to capture on c3. Queen take e7, king take e7, b takes c3. And here we get to this endgame, where currently white is a pawn up, but after bishop take c2, king g2, bishop goes back, we have an endgame with equal material, but white pieces are way more active. So the knight can jump here, we can develop the bishop, we can go with our rook to the e file. This king is dangerous, you know? The pawn on f7 could be weak, so this is very pleasant for white. So this is the counter gambit, and now we just need one more line, which is actually the most critical line, and is the king's gambit accepted with e take f4. So of course here we need to control the threat of queen h4, so we play knight f3, developing. And now there are many lines that black can play. Let's see them. So knight e7 is not the main line, and the idea is to go with the knight on g6 in order to protect the pawn on f4. And after d4, d5, basically our idea for white is to face always the move knight g6 with the move h4. So this is what you need to remember. In fact, if here knight g4, after d4, knight g6 is played, you just go with h4 with the idea of h5, and then you capture here. And most of the time, the move h5 is really weakening a lot white position. We will see how. Let's go back here, d4, d5, fighting for the center. Knight c3, d take e5, knight take e5, and now we want to capture back the pawn on f4. If white is doing that, white will have just a very good position, good development, control of the center, just a very good position. So knight g6, h4. And here, after the move h5, black is actually already in trouble. We can go on with bishop c4, attacking here. The knight might jump here. Queen on e7 is threatening some discovery check. This is extremely dangerous. So black needs to be careful here. So this is knight e7. It's not so much played because it's not so popular. Bishop e7 is another sideline, after which white can just keep going with the development. The idea of knight e7 is clearly to have a battery with the queen and the bishop towards the h4 square. But we just develop, and after bishop h4, we go with the king on f1. We say, okay, I cannot castle anymore, but I will go on with d4, knight here, I will capture the pawn on f4, and I will have an amazing position. And if I need to castle, I will play g3, king g2, rook f1, and I did an artificial castle. Anyway, the king is safe on f1. Another sideline here is the Fischer defense with d6. It seems very soft, but it's actually interesting. With the idea that after d4, we are threatening to capture back the pawn, of course. g5, protecting the pawn. And after a typical move like h4, there would be the move g4, and now our knight cannot jump on e5 like in the main line. We will see it later, but has to go very passive on g1. So I don't like this. That's why my suggestion here is to play the move g3, which is giving the pawn completely back. We will be for sure one pawn down, but we will play for a very good compensation. Here, taking here would be a terrible mistake, because we are taking here, we're taking the pawn on g5, attacking the queen, and we'll capture back on g3. So this would be great for white. But here black has the strong move g4, attacking the knight. Now the knight has to move. The knight is going to h4, maybe to go on f5 one day. And black is closing everything, saying, okay, I'm a pawn up with the move f3. Here you need to remember one more move, and then to know all the ideas of the position. The move is the move h3. So now how will white go on? Of course, the idea here is that if black is taking, this pawn will fall, and then also h3 is very weak. Also f7 is very weak. So most of the time black is protecting with the move h5 here. How will white proceed? With knight f3, bishop e3, queen d2, long castle, bishop to c4 or to b5, depends. And then try to play with the pieces. Push, place the rook in the center, push the right pawn at the right time, and see how black proceeds. Because here is not so easy to go on for black. So this position is objectively equal, but it's extremely complicated to play. So it depends on your taste. Let's go back. We have just one last line to see, and this is the main line. g5, protecting the pawn on f4. And here we go. Here I want to suggest two things. Idea number one is a very aggressive line. Is a piece gambit. It's called Muzio Gambit, and is bishop c4, g4, and castle. It seems crazy, but can be so effective, especially if you want to play this line in blitz, in quick chess. After g take f3, which is basically the only move, you capture back with the queen. And now you want to take here, and then to target the f7 pawn. It's incredible, but it's so hard to play here with black. Queen f6 is the main line. Already after this, white is in trouble, because this seems a natural move to protect the pawn. But after d4, we are attacking the pawn with one more piece, with the bishop on f4. Already move like queen to f6 will be faced by e5. So this is really uncomfortable for black. Engine says here 0-0-0, so it means that there is already full compensation for the piece now. So queen f3 is the main move. And here I want to show you a crazy idea that has been played in a game between Shirov Lapinski, where white is really giving everything. So e5, queen takes, and bishop take f7. Another piece sacrifice, second piece, in order to bring the king to the center. And after king take f7, the sacrifices are not finished, because also the move d4 is played. Queen take d4 check. Bishop e3. So the idea is that white wants to bring all the pieces without losing any tempo, without giving black chances to develop all these pieces. So queen to f6 and now bishop to f4. This is a very complex position. The idea for how to go on with white, knight c3, knight e5, attacking c7, attacking f6, going for some discovery check. This can be extremely good. This is objectively better for black, but is not at all an easy task to play with the black pieces. And grandmasters are played this line with the white pieces, so you can for sure playing this in your blitz, rapid, quick chess. If you want a bit more solid line for your OTB classical chess, instead of bishop c4, you can go for the main line, which is h4. Sorry. And here after g4, you place the knight on e5, which is again very active, attacking the pawn here, attacking the pawn on f7. d6, challenging this knight and saying, hey, where do you want to go? Knight take g4. You capture the pawn. Now we have equal material again, but black will go for the pawn on h4 with bishop e7, attacking the pawn on h4. Knight f2, in order to be ready to face bishop take h4, which is not a check anymore, and we play the move d4. So this position is equal according to the engine that we have nowadays. How should you play on with white? You need to place your queen on f3 in order to protect the knight and to attack the pawn on f4. Knight to c3, you take on f4 and you eventually long castle. And in some cases, your lines can be sharper, depends how black is going on. But here white is most of the cases enjoying an equal position. Yo, we did it! We covered all the lines of the King's Gambit. Now you're ready to try it out, and I wish you to have some beautiful attacking games. Remember to like and subscribe in order not to lose any of the next openings video review. Bye!